Hi, how are you? Welcome to Pod Bless, Texas. I'm Kendall Scudder here at the Pod Bless, Texas World Headquarters in Dallas, Texas. I'm here today with two very good friends of mine who are going to give you all the info of everything you need to know about everything related to the public school special session that the governor has declared starting October 9th. So first, our co-host, you have seen her on our podcast before, but it has been a while. You also may know her as the Democratic nominee for Senate District 9 of 2 cycles, right?
2 cycles, 2018, 2022, yes.
Gwenn Burud.
Hello, Pod Bless, Texas friends. So happy to be here again.
And you are a public education shill like I am.
Yes,
right?
I am.
And that is because?
Because by trade, I am a public school teacher with 28 years behind me. I am now a retired public school teacher.
Okay.
But,
congratulations. That's what I want to be when I grow up. Retired.
Retired, yes. Yes, it's been nice. I've been busy now, but yes. But obviously, public school is my heart. And, of course, funding him and supporting our public school teachers are definitely my heart as well.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
And also here today is just, I mean, you've read about her in the news every single time you pick up a newspaper. It feels like she's always on the right side of public school issues, especially if you Google Mike Miles and you try to learn about him. You can see lots of fun debates and stuff there. Rena Honea, who is the president of Alliance AFT here in Dallas.
Yes, and I am excited to be here on Pod Bless, Texas. Thank you for having me today.
Just tickled to be here. So, special session just got called. So we're recording right now at 3:25 on a Thursday. And they just released it, calling the special session on 4 different items on what they're calling education freedom, on border security, on ending COVID restrictions, and on public safety. We're going to talk probably mostly today on the education freedom situation, right? What do you foresee this looking like, Rena?
Quite frankly, I think it's going to be a long debate. I think there will be a lot of back and forth between the legislators, while all of them, or I should say nearly all of them, run their campaigns when they run for office on having good, strong public schools. They get into office and they listen to people that are not educators that will pour lots of money into their campaign to get them there, and then they feel obligated to listen to them. But the very people they need to be going to, need to be talking to, are the very last ones that are even considered. So I think we're going to see a huge pushback, I hope, against the governor and his ideas that are not going to serve all public school children in our state of Texas.
Yeah. And Gwenn, you are the executive director of an organization called Texans Defending Democracy.
Correct.
Where y'all advocate to inform people on these types of special sessions and items that are coming up. A typical person that sees education savings accounts, they may be confused by that terminology. Can you talk a little bit about how that compares to a voucher? Is it the same thing as a voucher, and what that is?
Yes. So as far as ESAs, there's a lot of different terminology for that, and you can probably speak to that as well. But basically, it's still the same thing, where it's welfare for the rich, like you've said before.
Welfare for the well-off.
There you go. There you go. So, and it's going to be, they're just coming up with a new phrase for that. It's not really, education savings accounts is not really a new phrase. But education freedom, that is new. And that would be something right out of a George Lakoff book on messaging. That's just, it sounds good. Everybody wants education freedom, but what it is our state dollars are paying for that education freedom, so it's not really freedom.
And so let's take a step back. Let's talk about vouchers as if you're a person who just, hey, you've heard it on the news, but you're just not familiar with what they are. What is it? We say that they're just welfare for the well-off, but Rena, what does that mean? In what way is that the case?
From what we can tell, these vouchers or these savings account are going to go to people that already have their children in private schools or in religious schools. And they're going to be able to take these dollars and go anywhere they want to, buy anything they want to. Could be supplies. It could be a trip that they say is for a field trip for their children. It could be to have a tutor to help their child, or it could be they need to pay a bill. And if they are homeschooling, if they are in private schools, they can use this money for whatever they want to. What they would like for you to think is that it's going to go to our lower socioeconomic children and their families, but it won't, because the $8,000 that is the number we hear going around would not even begin to pay for tuition for one child, much less if there's 3 or 4 in the family. And they do not have the funds to be able to find the additional dollars to be able to go into one of those schools. So it is not something that all children in our public schools will be able to prosper from. It's very selective, and it's isolated to who it will go to.
And I mean, you're talking literally of the realm of like $25,000 additional dollars for your average private school tuition there.
Yes.
And so unless you can manage to scrape 25 grand up, all you're ending up with is less money in your community public school.
Absolutely. And in my opinion, if they get this voucher done, Texas will be funding 3 educational systems. We have our public schools, which is a civil right for every child in the state of Texas.
And constitutionally protected.
They fund charter schools, which in Dallas, I know that the charter school students receive about a little over $1,500 per child in a charter school that our public schools do not get. So their funding is more. And if we do these vouchers, that is a third educational system that definitely takes more dollars from our public schools, who takes every child, whatever their issues are. We take them, we love them, and we educate them. Charters and those private and private schools, they are selective in who comes in, and if they don't do what they're expected to do, or if the parents don't participate, they can tell them to leave. And where do they go? Community public schools, who welcomes them with open arms.
Community public schools who already had those monies taken out of them. So even
Yes.
if you put your kids in a charter or a private and then decide, you know what, this isn't working, I want to put my kids back into public school, that money for the rest of the year is going to that private school and not
Yes,
going
it
to the
is.
schools.
Right, and let's not forget, the oversight is not there when you go into that private school. So you might not have certified teachers. You might not have certified teachers. They might not be certified in the area that they're teaching in. And I do want to add the data behind what you were saying, Rena, about most of these will go to people who can already afford that particular education. 75% of the students in Arizona, when they started their voucher school program, 75% of those students never attended public schools. So this is data right there telling us who it is going to benefit.
Right. So those are people who didn't have their kids in public school in the first place. They accept a voucher, and that amount of dollars is taken out of the public schools to put those kids into a private school. Right?
Yes,
Right.
it is.
What is the funding per pupil in Texas right now?
Is it 8,000? Wait.
Last I heard it was like $6,100.
Yeah,
Does that
yeah,
sound
because
about
That's
right?
about right.
8,000 is for the charters.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when this kind of occurred to me, like somebody had pointed this out to me, you know, obviously I've been on the anti-voucher bandwagon for a while, but sometimes drawing the pieces together can be a little tough. When they were like, you pay $6,100 per pupil right now in public schools. But if you take that kid out of that school and put them in a private school, we'll give you $8,000 a pupil. That just seems out. Not only are you losing the funding that you would have gotten, which was only $6,100, but you're losing more than how much you would have gotten if they were in school when you're shipping them out to a private school.
And the monies that you would have gotten, they follow that child. They don't stay there. So the $6,100 that they should have gotten goes with them wherever they go.
Right.
If it's a charter or if it's a private, that money goes and it doesn't come back.
Why do you think that they pay more per pupil in charter and private schools? Like we know what they say is the reason. What do you think is the real reason that they pay more per pupil in a charter or private school than to put them in a public school?
In the first chapter of Rena, this is my opinion, it is because they are trying to privatize and charterize our public schools and deem them failures. For years, our legislators have said public education is too expensive. Well, no. It is a constitutional and a civil right that every child in this state has the opportunity to be well educated, but they are making it harder and harder and putting more unfunded mandates out that causes more money to be used, which takes away from the classrooms.
Absolutely. I mean, let's just take guns, for instance. We're putting more guns on campuses based on legislation that we need more armed officers there. But the way that they funded that, your average school district is going to get about $800,000, but it might be $2 million to do this. So districts who are already suffering and already are not receiving the funding that they need to receive to actually adequately run their districts are now at a disadvantage because of things like this, where it's more money to put armed guards in your schools. And the legislature didn't think about that when they were doing the funding because, they're just, again, that's setting us up to fail. Rena's right. Yeah. I like the book of Rena.
Thank you.
I'd proselytize that. No, it's important that every kid gets a quality public education. We say that, but let's put it into perspective for a second. You have kids, like me that were out in rural East Texas, or kids that are in urban centers, right, where their only tool or opportunity for upward economic mobility would be access to a quality public school and education. It is the greatest tool for upward economic mobility on the globe since its creation by John Adams, right?
Right.
And the motive behind trying to make sure that poor kids stay poor is so that rich folks are able to continue to strip back their rights and use them for manual labor or in assembly lines, and stop them from getting educations and force them to generate wealth for the wealthy and not for themselves. That's how it comes across to me.
Well, and you can look right now, there have already been rumbles from corporations saying that they can't get quality people to fill the positions that they need. Well, that to me directly is impacted by the funding of our public schools. They have taken away so much of the funding that it's hard to fill our classrooms with good qualified teachers because they can't afford to live in our society today. They can't live in the areas where they work because they can't afford it. Inflation has eaten up their checks. The insurance premiums, which are unregulated, have gone sky high, and we have many educators that can't even afford insurance. So there are so many things working against them that the government controls, that our legislators, that we keep putting the same people in. We have just fed into their plan of taking away our public schools and deeming them failures.
It's just outrageous.
Yeah. And also we have to think that Texas is always good for business. We talk about that all the time. But is our workforce educated enough to be ready for business? No.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to say, we have educators that are doing absolutely fabulous. We have kids that graduate that are just phenomenal. And it's not because the legislators have given them any kind of encouragement. None.
It's in spite of the legislature.
Absolutely it is. And I'll tell you what, they give their heart and soul. They spend money out of their own pockets every year to make sure that their children do well. And they have more and more put on them. And that's why you see an exodus of educators leaving, or they'll come in for a year or two and realize, this is not for me. I can't do this. It's way more than I bit off. And so those are the crises that we're having to handle right now. But we cannot let it go without saying the fabulous job that many of our educators, I know especially in Dallas, are giving and doing in spite of what is being done to them.
Well, I think even a lot of these, far right individuals that are pushing these programs, they are even hesitant to criticize their community public schools. They'll just criticize the other ones. They'll say the ones in their districts are the good ones, but the other ones are terrible, educrats or whatever they want to call them. But it's because people like their neighborhood schools and they like their neighborhood school teachers. I mean, that's an important piece of just being in a society here. So something we haven't brought up yet that I think is very important in the discussion on vouchers or education savings accounts or whatever they want to call them is why they came up in the first place, right? And there was an interview with former Lieutenant Governor Ratliff that came out yesterday in the Quorum Report by Scott Braddock, Ratliff was the vice chair of the State Board of Education for a long time. This is back in the day. And he recalled the first time that vouchers were brought up for discussion in Texas was in 1956 when they saw desegregation on the horizon and white families are trying to figure out how they could find a path to not have their kids in desegregated public schools. And vouchers were the option, right? You give them to white families so they can put their kids in all white private schools. Have you seen, Rena, any discussion in this voucher program about racial equity in any way to make sure that we aren't just ending up with desegregated or with segregated schools all over again?
Actually, I have not, but I know it's there. Racial equity is a huge educational concept right now. But if you look, we still have the segregation that many want, unfortunately, because in 2023, we should not be having this conversation. And we still are. It has been historical. It's been there. It's going to continue to be there until we have people that really understand we're all in this together. We need to work together, and that doesn't mean you have to be buddy-buddy with everybody, but we have to make this work because this is our state, this is our city, these are our schools, and these are the public citizens that make them work. And we need to be more accepting of who everyone is. We all have differences. If we didn't, we'd be little robots, wheeling around everywhere. But I think the racial equity is a huge issue that Dallas has fought for a long, long time, and actually the state of Texas.
But Gwen, it doesn't feel like you can trust a legislature that just stripped DEI programs to make sure we have racial equity in these, right?
In my head, that's like, but wait. Yes, I mean, right. When in Southlake, the Cultural Competence Committee was shot down, the recommendations were shot down, and basically diversity, equity, inclusion, empathy somehow became a bad word. So if you're talking about racial equality, that's funny because you sure don't want it in your public schools as it stands. And anybody that tries to focus on that to show that this is an issue, all of a sudden you get called, I can't even say the word. It starts with W, ends with oak. I mean, you get it.
Well, I'll tell you
the
what,
word empathy.
I'm a Democrat from East Texas. I've been called much worse than woke. I mean, I don't know. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about the politics behind it, because hopefully a listener can now kind of understand all the different problems with vouchers. And actually, I want to talk about one more thing before we pivot to that. And that's what creates in a capitalist society when you have these vouchers. Somebody brought this up to me the other day, that you start handing people $8,000 tickets, coupons, whatever, to put your kids in a private school. Suddenly you start ending up with private schools in every strip mall, like Spirit Halloween. And they will be private schools that don't have educational accountability. They don't have teacher accreditation standards. They're completely the Wild West, but somehow their tuition will cost exactly $8,000. Right. And what you'll start finding is super low par, low grade private schools that people think they're getting their kids in some fancy private school or in a private school that they have been told is great. But in reality, you're just creating a new industry of capitalism where people are just, how can I milk as much money out of a voucher as possible?
Yeah, school as a daycare, basically.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So I wanted to point that out. So now let's pivot to the politics of it. We in Texas have always staved off vouchers, ESAs, whatever they want to call them, because there has been a large faction of Republicans that will stand with Democrats, because in a rural area, there's nothing to gain from having a voucher. You don't even have private schools to put your kids in. That Republican caucus has been shrinking. It's now down to 24 if you're being generous. Are those Republicans, Rena, going to stand firm? Do you have any idea?
Well, we've had some success with crossing the aisle and helping to bridge those relationships, so they have been strong so far, because they see exactly what's going to happen to their school districts if they don't. They don't have enough for pay raises for their employees. They are passing deficit budgets to try to make ends meet for the school district. And I can tell you there's a school district right now, their teachers make $38,000 a year. That is poverty.
Right.
In our day and
college-educated people.
Yes.
Yeah.
College educated, but because of where they live, the school district doesn't have that much money. $38,000 is very minimal for the amount of work that they have to do. And you know they love what they do, and they love those kids, because those are the future leaders of that community, of possibly the city or the state. And they are trying to, in my opinion, they're trying to dwindle it down to where those completely go away, and then you have the substandard places. And what we've seen many times is that parents will take their kids out of public school, put them in a charter or a private, they start not doing well. And they bring them back, and they're so far behind, and the parents are like, but how could they be? They were doing so well. Well, they weren't telling you the truth. Their standards are not the same. And so parents are just like appalled. But they had this beautiful brand new building, so they thought the work inside would be brand new and up to speed. And it's not.
I mean,
That happened in Birdville ISD. There was a charter school that opened up in that area. And the neighborhood school across the street from the charter, their testing scores were much higher than the charter school that touted the better record. So that's what your neighborhood schools do for you.
well, it's always been this, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Public education was the stupidest game for Republicans to play and the stupidest prize for them to win. And so they've always stayed away from it. But now we're in a position where it's becoming the majority of their caucus. And if we start to lose some of those Republicans, we're going to be in bad shape. Also on the political discussion, San Antonio Express News reported yesterday that Barbara Gervin Hawkins in San Antonio is going to break with the caucus and support Republican vouchers. She has landed some backroom deal. I mean, that's scary because if you start to lose too many Republicans and these
Democrats.
Democrats are crossing over, and we very well may end up with that. Has that been your experience, Rena, when you've been interacting? Do you think that we're going to lose, swaths of Democrats, or do you think that the caucus will stay firm?
I've not been in a whole lot of those conversations, but my hope is that we will stand firm because we depend on that. We need that. Our kids need that. They're not little political pawns that the adults have made them to be. And their education, these are the kids that are going to take care of us as we get older and older and make decisions for us. And people forget that. And they need to hopefully become educated when they're voting. You can't, in a bipartisan setting, you can't vote in the name of a party. And that's what so many do, in my opinion. They vote for the party, but they don't really pay attention to how it's going to affect them as well. But certainly not the children that are in our public schools that deserve so much more than what they're willing to do.
And also important to point out, Barbara Gervin Hawkins, the owner of Gervin Academy, a charter school branch in Bexar County. Gwenn, what's your message to the Democrats that are considering defecting? Because what I've heard, this is just rumor mill. Y'all listen to this because you want the rumors. Here's the rumors. Rumors are that the governor is just promising the moon. He's saying, I'll give you whatever you want if you give me a voucher scheme. I will give you increased per pupil funding. I'll give you better SPED funding. I'll eliminate standardized tests in the A through F grading system and giving anything that I can do to please get. But it's because these voucher programs are just a gateway. It'll expand out.
Yes.
What's your message to these Democrats who are being bribed by the governor right now?
Well, don't believe the bribe, number one. Yeah, he can make all sorts of promises. They have. They've said in the past that they're going to increase special ed funding. They've said that they're going to increase the per student allotment, but they haven't done that in the past. So all of a sudden, if you fold and go ahead and go with the Republican side of this and vote for vouchers or ESAs or those promises still, they won't deliver on those promises. It's kind of like McCarthy. Just don't believe Abbott. Don't believe that. And just think, what's really important is this deal worth that child in that public school that's trying to reach upward mobility? Is it worth our future?
No.
Right.
No, it is not.
It is not. Give these kids a chance.
I mean, it's so frustrating. But there may be hope in the fact that they have stacked this special session with more than just education, right? Because if Abbott thought he was going to get a win, he could get this to stand alone. But instead, he's put other things like border security, public safety, COVID, eliminate whatever it is, eliminating the COVID restrictions. He stacked all that in it too. Actually, there's more border security in it than there is education. Yeah. I mean, is that an indicator that he kind of knows that it may not move?
I think he knows it's going to be a fight because it has been a fight every time it's been brought up. And he knows that. I think he did it also at a time that schools are in session. So hopefully there won't be educators come down giving their stories, telling what is needed, and students and parents. So I think he very well knows. But this is not anything that can be played with. It is the ultimate thing in a time that Texas has more financial resources than we've ever had. And in the first two sessions, education was not even on the agenda. They wouldn't even talk about it. Yet you heard in campaigns, we're going to pay our teachers. We're going to support our schools. We need this. And it was another lie. It was just something for their own political gain, which I think is what we're seeing right now. And we have to be smarter than that. We have to be able to see through the smoke and understand we have to stand strong for the ones that deserve this educational opportunity. And if we don't, we're going to be in a place that we won't have educated people. We won't have people that can run our businesses, that can educate others. And we have to stand strong.
Yeah.
And be that voice.
So if someone is listening and they want to stand strong and be that voice, what can we do in this legislative session? I mean, I think people have written postcards until their hands can fall off at this point, right? What can we do to help you? Because this special session is a slugfest.
Well, I can't reiterate enough that you need to contact your representatives, to contact your state senator, no matter where they may stand on this issue, because they need to feel that pressure from their constituents so that they understand that, hey, the voice of the citizens are louder than the voice of the Wilkes brothers. I mean, that's, to me, that's something
Yes.
that we all need to do. You can go down to Austin or you can do online comments. It's super, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there.
And the Wilkes brothers are we've spoken about them before in the podcast, especially when Chris Tackett comes on.
Yes.
They are large, uber, like super right-wing conservative Christian nationalists who are trying to and have successfully bought out the right wing of the Republican Party.
Right. And you have to do their bidding or they will send somebody to primary you.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, what a night. And Rena, what can folks do?
I am right along with Gwenn. If we could get more people to take a day to go and be in those sessions, speak up. It doesn't take a long time. You may have to wait, but they need to see our citizens. They need to see our parents. They need to see our educators. But sending emails, making those phone calls, letting your representative know exactly where you stand, and you expect that of them, and get all your friends, your family, your voters, go to the polls, vote for people that have a record of being supportive of what you believe in, and just be active. It doesn't take a lot, but it is so valuable and so important. That's what we're going to have to continue fighting these vouchers.
You know, as like a political dork, I always, had my visions because, I started when I was like 12. So I always had these visions of what legislators and folks, I was shocked when I found out how little correspondence elected officials actually do get. Like I expect the door bursting open and letters flying out of it. Right. But in reality, you don't get that much correspondence. And so getting 25 people to call you is a big deal when you're a legislator, and it's kind of scary because no one ever pays attention to what you're doing.
Right.
Let them know you're watching.
Well, ladies, I really appreciate you taking time to explain to folks kind of what we're up against in this special session. It's very scary, and I appreciate y'all taking time out of your day to chat about it. But you don't get to leave yet, because before you go, you have to play everyone's favorite segment. It's called Obsessed! Obsessed, where each of us talk about what news story for the week of those politics or was it that we've been completely obsessed with. And as always, we have to start with our co-host, Gwenn Burud. What's something this week you've been completely obsessed with?
Okay. So I knew we were going to talk about education, so I wanted to veer from that for obsessed.
Fair.
But I'm still pissed. So I live in Tarrant County. So we know a little bit about our commissioner's court. We have Tim O'Hare as our county judge. Who even...
I don't think most people know who Tim O'Hare is.
So who even the outgoing conservative judge, Judge Glenn Whitley, did not want him to be elected. He somehow beat out the former mayor of Fort Worth, Betsy Price, in a primary. He did not want to focus on the hospital district, those types of things.
He's an election denier.
He is an election denier. He's also one of the founders of the South Lake Families PAC, which basically shot down the cultural competence expectations for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the face of racism, so to speak. But anyway, we have him. But what happened is Girls Inc. is an organization that does a lot of great things in the community, especially to our underserved communities. They were slated to receive state funding from a grant that was shot down by our commissioners court because they had public comments, and I'm just going to read a couple. Can I read a couple?
Go for it.
All right, this is fun. Okay, so, all right. I won't say the names except for the last one. I hear a lot of people say that Girls Inc. does a lot of good for girls. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of German citizens in Germany, I guess he wanted to separate that could say that Nazi programs and clubs, that they were doing good things at a time when they weren't. These are what people say in public comments. Nice, huh? And then, of course, where was Girls Inc. whenever we had a man on a women's swim team? Another person said, because apparently, serving those underserved communities, they're about that. Now, the reason these people are up in arms is because the national organization supports things like abortion rights, transgender, LGBT, all those were right, that. But the local Tarrant County division have separated themselves from that. The board is actually consists of conservatives. So my favorite one is my own county commissioner, Manny Ramirez, where you start to think, hey, they're making sense. Commissioner Manny Ramirez, a Republican who has 3 daughters, said he is raising his girls to be strong, independent, and every girl in the community should have the same opportunity. Ramirez was troubled by the vitriol tossed at Girls Inc. So from the public comments, and expressed that many of the board members are conservatives and have separated themselves from the national organization. He did that right before he voted against the funding.
Wow.
Yes.
What does Girls Inc. do? I've never heard of that.
So they, health services and also job training services. They go out in the community, serve these underserved areas. Girls in the Tarrant County area, that's between the ages of 5 and 18. So a lot of good work that they do there.
And they were getting free money, and the commissioners court voted for them to not get.
Yes, 5 organizations were slated to receive money that day. Girls Inc. did not, because of the national organization, not the good that they're doing for the community. All that to say, Girls Inc. is going to need some money. So if you could donate, folks, to girlsinctarrant.org, that would really help these girls get the services they need.
See, that just flew totally under the radar. I didn't even heard about that.
Yeah, I'm lucky because Star Telegram, Abby Church did a piece on it yesterday. So that's how I found out about it. Read your newspaper, folks. That's support your local newspaper.
Tarrant County is so frustrating because, it went blue for Beto.
It did.
And it feels like it's slow crawling there, but it's just not getting there fast enough.
And then it went in these races where these are countywide races where when Tim O'Hare won that, when he won the county judge position, it was like, well, if we are a blue area, how are they winning these local races? Where it's the whole county. These are countywide races. Why are they winning?
It's the down ballot drop-off, man.
Yeah, down ballot drop-off, and still Tarrant County is the #1 non-voting urban county in the nation.
Wow.
So, when it's low turnout, we know what that means.
So frustrating.
Republicans win.
Good obsessed, Gwenn Burud. Good non-education related obsessed, Gwenn Burud. Good obsessed. Rena Honea, what is something this week you've been completely obsessed with?
Oh, I have 2 or 3 things, but I guess the #1 thing is a personal thing. Found out that I'm going to be a great-grandparent from my only grandson. Yeah. And so we are most excited. Just found out and everything. He is serving in the military, so they are serving in Hawaii right now, but hopefully we'll be back to Texas at some point.
Don't put that on them.
I know. but it's just so far to get over there and so expensive right now. But we just are elated to be able to welcome a new family member. And so totally obsessed, and I had to wait until it was totally confirmed before I could share it with everyone.
What's your grandmother name? Like, everybody calls their grandma like Nana or Mimi.
Right.
Or what's your grandma name?
Nanty or Nanny.
Nanty or Nanny. So are you going to now be Great Nanty, or are they going to also just call you Nanty?
Well, I don't know. My husband is going to be Gigi Paw right now because he was G-Paw for the grandson. So Gigi Paw. So I said, well, I just might be Gigi Mama. Who knows?
Gigi Mama.
Yeah. That generational. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll just see, but I'm sure that baby will come up with a name at some point.
That is so exciting.
Yeah, we are excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good.
Very
That's
cool.
the best obsessed.
It is. It is way better.
I guess I'll have a lesser obsessed. My obsessed is the Kevin McCarthy stuff. We couldn't get through this podcast without talking about this Kevin McCarthy stuff. Guys, holy shit. I mean, like, it is wild. Here's what's obsessed. Here's why I've been obsessed about it. There's a lot of different aspects of it to be obsessed with, like them taking Nancy Pelosi's office away, or the fact that he's the first Speaker of the House to ever be removed from his position, or Matt Gaetz, spearheading all of this and doing it successfully, which congratulations for that fail son finally doing one thing that worked for him. But what the part of it that's obsessive to me is comparing it to the Texas House and how we pick a speaker, right? That our speaker, obviously, ideologically, I'm not aligned with that guy, and I wouldn't vote for him. But, he's not completely dismissive of Democrats, right? He keeps dialogue with them. He treats them with respect. They can disagree without being disagreeable. And as a result, he ends up with votes from Democrats every time he runs. And that's how he's maintained his speakership, and you have people on the right trying to throw him out, but they can't because he's going to have all the Democrats behind him in the faction of the Republicans. Kevin McCarthy has been completely dismissive of the minority party. He's been disrespectful. He's treated them like crap. He's made promises to them he's pulled back on. He's coddled far-right conspiracy theorists on election denying. And so then, whenever he's about to lose his speakership, who does he need? Who does he need to save the spot? And of course, they're not going to stand up and line up behind him because you didn't treat them with basic respect. The obsession point of it to me is that I hope that some moderate Republican out there realizes that if they have 7 friends and can treat the Democratic caucus with an modicum of respect, they could be the speaker. And we could potentially have a speaker, if people played their cards right, that's focused on kitchen table issues and not culture wars. What does that mean for the country now? It could be a huge transformative moment, but I don't know that I trust members of the Republican caucus to be able to pull it off. That's the problem. But I've just been completely obsessed with how this could transform American politics, but how it will not.
Yeah.
Well, thoughts?
Well, like you said, you would need the 7 to come over. So far, what we've seen Jim Jordan and Scalise. Those aren't exactly
and Donald Trump, man. Don't forget.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
Oh, yes.
I hadn't heard that one.
Congressman Nels of Texas is going to nominate Donald Trump.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, classy. Yeah.
I actually
so that doesn't give me hope.
I hope they elect Donald Trump as a speaker, and I say that because I don't think he has the political savvy to be a speaker. I don't think he could get any legislation passed or accomplished. He couldn't when he was president. He damn sure can't do it when you have to have your hands in the cookie jar, making policy work. He has no academic or intellectual curiosity.
And how will he meet all of his court dates and indictments that way? I mean,
the rules actually say in the House that if you are under a federal indictment, you can't be speaker. So do they'd have to change the rules to put him there.
Yeah, they might not have the votes for that, hopefully. Hopefully not.
Well, that's what I've been completely obsessed with.
I love it.
And that was Obsessed! Rena Honea of Dallas Alliance AFT So thrilled that you came and joined us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
As this unfolds, if we have to call you back for emergency reporting on the special session, if it drags on forever, will you come back and
call me? I will be here.
If somebody wanted to follow you or the work of Alliance AFT, where could they go to do that?
We are on Facebook. We have a Twitter, although I'm not great at doing that. Thank goodness some of my members are.
You're doing real work.
I'm still learning, yeah. I'm technologically challenged at some of those things, so thank God for our fabulous members that help me out there.
Well, I mean, don't expect Gigi Ma to send a bunch of tweets.
That's right.
She's got other things to do. Gwenn Burud of Texans Defending Democracy. Yes. Where can people go to follow you and the work that your organization's doing?
Right. So, yes, Texans Defending Democracy. First of all, we're combating a lot of the misinformation that we're seeing out there, which is so needed.
Clearly.
But you can reach, our website is texansdefendingdemocracy.com. From there, you can reach all of our social medias, our Twitter, Facebook, sorry, I always forget, Instagram, and even TikTok.
No threads?
Oh, yes, we got to do that. Yes, we got to get on that.
Are people still? I really hate how
is it
threads,
a thing still?
It kind of took a bit of a nosedive, but there's still good progressives on there trying to get it cranking. Surely Zuck's going to come in and zhuzh it up a bit. And just,
really?
Who knows?
Yeah. I would have thought with the whole X thing that Twitter would be gone, but here we are.
Yeah.
I tried to leave Twitter and go solely to Threads, and I went a little over a month without even tweeting. And then people were just like nagging me about it. It's like, you're not even on Twitter. You're not even saying anything on Twitter. It's like, well, I'm trying to get off. All good liberals should be getting off of Twitter right now. I was trying to do the right thing. I caved. I came back. I'm a weak person. I did what I could. So if people wanted to follow me, I guess you could also follow me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all the social medias at Kendall Scudder. Follow the podcast at Pod Bless Texas. We're also on all the social medias. You can become a patron. That'd be great because I have to pay for all this, so that'd be helpful. And yeah, info at podblesstexas.com is where you send me all of your hate mail, your fan mail, your recommendations, or your own obsess that we may play during an episode. Closing thoughts. Nice. Any closing thoughts?
Be active and informed with the special session coming up. Talk to your representatives, to your senators. Tell them vouchers will just take more money away from our public schools, and do the right things for our kids and for Texas.
Yeah. And make sure every Democrat knows that if they vote in favor of vouchers, it is unforgivable and they will never see the end of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. On behalf of myself, Gwenn, Rena, the entire Pod Bless Texas team, y'all have a blessed week, and we'll see you next week.